Hello, welcome to the show. This is Hack Hunter, where we review some of the best and worst tattoo artists that are in your cities. Now, this is part number 2, guys, of our Ireland episode. That's right, we're heading out to Sligo, Ireland, because one of our viewers pointed out a studio that we just could not pass up. We got a double header coming up for you guys. That's right, you're going to want to stick around for this one. So, without further ado, let me introduce Skull and Michaela. You can find them both working at Celtic Resurrection right there in Sligo, Ireland. And if you want to find them on Instagram, you can, but when we clicked on the first image there, it turns out it was like 6 years old, so don't bother contacting them through there. They do have a website, but when I clicked on it, bam, this is what I got. Not a surprise. This is becoming something we see almost every time when we come across some of these sketchy studios. They do not keep up with their website bill. They just don't pay it, or they don't want to take the time to create their own website. It's so easy nowadays. It's literally drag and drop. It's so easy to make your own website. I don't understand, but it's just kind of a laziness that kind of endures. Always do your own research, but let me show you what I found. Let's start with Skull. Boom. Oh my god, this is just terrible. Now, it's not the worst portrait we ever seen on this show, right? But there is a major mistake here, and this goes to show me, just from my experience seeing these, that he's definitely an amateur when it comes to portraiture work. The main thing is there's no depth here. It's all just light gray. Medium, light gray. That's it. I'm not sure what he's doing with the brown tones in the background. I don't know if this is an incomplete piece. It's just strange, though, the way he gapped lines in some places. Other lines are really bold. I don't really think he knew what he was doing with portraits, and because of it, he kind of took this timid approach. But for me, the fact that he outlined so much around the eyes, that already tells me he doesn't know what he's doing. But yeah, again, there's barely any dark shadows in here. There'd be a really dark shadow underneath the, John Wayne's chin here, just because it would shape the bottom of the chin and the neck, but he just used a medium tone and just kind of tried to saturate it in there, but when they heal, it's still just a medium or a light gray, so you can't do that. Here's another one where he attempted something realistic. At least he contrasted this one, but he did something I always often say as a no-no, is don't put the white in the whites of the eyes. I know that seems like something artistically speaking that would work, but usually that white turns into an off-white or a tan kind of color after it heals, so you're not going to want to white them eyes out like that. Not good. Now, I know, I know hands are difficult for all artists, right? So I kind of give people the benefit of the doubt, but in his case, he tried to do hands just really, really poorly. You can tell he just did light gray shades in places where he thought shadows should go, but there's no real texturing or depth to the piece again. And this is something I see a lot of. When an artist goes into a piece and they're kind of timid, they're not sure how to do it, or they're nervous, they end up just dashing a little bit of gray in there and leaving all this skin. And that to me says it's going to heal in a very weird way. It's going to be an overly contrast piece with a dark background, bright white foreground with just no contour to it at all. And you can also tell when you zoom in on his gray wash here. This is something that you guys can look for when you're looking out for a tattoo artist. You're trying to find a good one. Zoom in on their gray fades, because look at this blend from dark to medium gray. This should be a lot more smoothly gradiated, but you can tell he's sitting here whipping it in with his tattoo machine, whipping it, and it's just irritating the skin, beating it all to hell. You can see that redness, irritated skin all around. That just shows that even as an artist that's been doing it probably 20 years now, he has no idea how to create the nice smooth fade. Or maybe he does, and he's just too kind of complacent or lazy to do it the right way, because to do it the right way, it takes time and patience. And you can see it again up here in the mountains. Look at this face of the eagle. Oh, that's rough. But look at the mountains. You can see again, the fading is just not there. It looks really, really scratchy. And again, he's just whipping it in there, and so it's just not going to come out smooth by rushing like that. But this is just a terrible design of an eagle. I would imagine that he probably traced it or copied it off something and just did a really piss poor job, because what? Oh my god, that is just gnarly. Now, this one is his fine line ability or lack thereof. Something we see a lot when an artist is not good at fine line or small detail. What ends up happening is exactly this. You see how red and irritated that skin is? He's just beating it up because he's getting in there in those tight spaces trying to shade them, but he doesn't know how to do it, so he's just overworking and irritating that skin. And all these areas where it's bright red like this, that skin is now too damaged to hold the ink properly. So what's going to happen is when it heals, it's going to look 50% lighter than that, if not more. And so that's something you can look out for again as well. If you're seeing artists that just have redness, more redness than they do gray in their gray wash, then you can almost guarantee it's not going to heal very nice. Now here's one where his gray looked a little bit better, soft gray blending up in there. It's not so bad, but I'm really not a fan of what the hell he did with this moon. Look at that. I get it, moons are difficult, it's a perfect circle, but what the hell is this? Somebody just took a bite out of it? What the hell? Is it supposed to be because that star is shining in front of it? I don't understand this technique at all. I don't understand what he was thinking. That just looks real whack. Not to mention, that does not look like the texture of the moon. So this is, again, somebody just kind of taking the quick route. He knows that the client will be happy enough if he just does a little bit of gray up in there and calls it good. Same with this filler in the background, all these little dots and stars. This is just a cheap way to fill a large area. I hate to see stuff like that. If the client asks for it, if it's like a retro American traditional style piece, they used to fill their sleeves that way. But it's because they didn't have any better ideas. is. It was because there's only so much advancement in the world of art and tattooing way back when American Traditional was created. So that's what they did. They just put a bunch of stars and crap. But I hate to see it today when an artist is just using cheap filler because they can't think of something better. Now, this one. These gears and all this are pretty out of whack. Look at this. Medium-sized tooth, skinny tooth, skinny tooth. Like, it's just really, really inconsistent. The perspective is all off here. None of these gears are circular. They're all kind of ovals that are warped. And I think this pretty much sums it up. This is about the best he could have done on a piece like this. And then he goes in later and blasts white in there as if it's going to kind of clean it up or impress the client in some way. So I just think it's disappointing. It's really half-assed, and it's definitely an artist I would say to look out for. Now, I'm going to move on to Michaela's work now, and it's pretty much exactly what you would expect, considering Skull was her teacher. Let's see how she did a piece that's similar to this. Bam! Here's her gears and cogs and all this. Let's zoom in. What? All these weird, tiny, misshapen teeth, and then these ones look relatively even for about 4 or 5 teeth, but then all of a sudden she just got out of whack. Like she just gave up. And again, none of these gears look like they're actual smooth circles. None of the perspective looks good. All the shading looks beat up and red and irritated and just really kind of chintzy, very minimalist shading in places. So as you can kind of guess, she was taught by him, and so you're going to see a lot of the same mistakes throughout her work. Look at all these kind of squiggly lines in this one. Oh my gosh. Even if somebody was deaf, I don't think they could read this. This is just terribly squiggly and just really, really poor line work. And why does this one look like the fingernails on the wrong side? What is going on there? Just really, really tough at that small detail. It's not their forte. Here's another one where the snake scales. Look at how inconsistent those are. Just terrible. I'm not sure what she shaded this with, but it looks like she just kind of tried to shade it with her outliner. Like she didn't want to switch to a shader, so she just shaded it with her outliner. That is a big no-no. Very, very lazy. A lot of red flags going off in her work. The design work is just terrible, and when you mix that with somebody who does not have good application technique, this is the kind of garbage you get. Now, at first, I did not want to include her in this review, you guys, because I could tell just from looking, she's probably been tattooing about 5 or 6 years, which in my book is still relatively new. We don't like to showcase artists on this show that are still new and learning and evolving. I don't like to tear down new artists, but in this instance, I think she's a little too far gone. I think she's become complacent with very mediocre work. It shows she's taking on large pieces like this, despite lacking the skill set to pull it off, and also not putting in the time or energy to really create a nice, custom, creative, artistic piece for a client. So I'm going to include her in this review, even though I think she's still got a long way to go. She could improve from here, but there's a lot of telltale signs of a future hack, if you ask me. Look at how uneven this circle is up here on the Dreamcatcher. Just terrible. I think this is supposed to be watercolor, and I'll give her a little bit of credit. The color does look saturated, so maybe her technique for saturating color is decent. Her technique for blending the color, not quite as good, but I think there's some room for improvement for sure. But most of the pieces, you can see, when I zoom in here, you see how kind of chunky that skin looks? That's because it's just way overworked. This is a good example of when an artist is trying to fill in tight spaces, and they're doing it with a really small needle set, so they're overworking the skin, and it creates this chunky look to it, and that's almost definitely going to scab up really bad. It's not going to heal nicely, but it's not like it'll matter because the rest of it, again, squiggly lines, really inconsistent, uneven stuff. Look at this side of it compared to this side of it. Something just went off the rails there, like she stopped giving a halfway through. Just terrible to see. But most of her tattoos were like this. This really squiggly line work, most likely done too deep. You can see like the glaring and raising of the skin, so I don't have much hope for any of it. But this one I had to show because I have talked about this before in the past. When somebody comes in and they want a memorial tattoo and you give them some clip art garbage like this that is just quickly done, it's just very, very angering to me. I don't have any memorial tattoos on me, but I can imagine you come in with an important one like this. You're hoping to get something awesome that that person that passed away would be proud of or impressed with, and then you get some clip art garbage. Very disappointing. I give half of the credit to the client in that instance too, though. I think you guys know where this is going. Skull 100% goes on our hack list. Now, as for Michaela, it's tough. I think she could still improve over time, but she's got to get out of that studio. She's got to get away from him and learn from much better artists, different artists, learn some versatility, and maybe it'll improve. But for now, I'm just going to put her on my caution list, guys. I wouldn't recommend going to her, but she's not a hack all the way yet. All right, that's it for this episode, guys. Go check out part number 1 if you didn't see this incredible artist that we found there in Sligo, Ireland. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next city. Bye-bye.